Hello and welcome to Walk the Talk. I am Shekhar Gupta at arguably one of Delhi's three most important residences, 2 Krishna Menon Marg, and my guest today, the man who's busiest than anybody else, but still seems to be like a batsman, Arun Jaitley, who always has time to play the shot, isn't it?
I think whatever you do, you should do in a relaxed manner. If you become tense, and there are tense moments when you have responsibility, you end up making a mistake. So I think it's always good to be your own self, and that's the way I try to do things.
You made a very interesting statement in Gujarat that Prime Minister of India is somebody who should always be a political leader, who should always have political capital. I mean, the implication of corollary is that we paid the price for having a Prime Minister for 10 years who did not have political capital of his own.
For instance, I must mention, the context in which I said this is, you guessed it rightly, our experience of the last 10 years. Whenever I have met our former Prime Minister, Dr Manmohan Singh, on a one-to-one basis or discussed some issue with him, I come back very happy because I've always found him to be a man of scholarship. I have found him to be a person who understands the issue.
And a patriot.
He's a patriot. He has the country's interest at heart. He goes deep into the issues. And I come back with an impression that he is a very syana admi hai.
And he has integrity.
He has integrity. I come back with an impression that he is a very syana admi hai. I wrote that in a blog as a tribute to him.
Yes.
But when it came to implementing them as Prime Minister, I think one slight opposition from within the government, within the party, the move would stop. So the imprint of Dr Manmohan Singh's wisdom was not visible in the running of his government. For instance, if he had stood up and said halfway through, the 2G will not be auctioned in this manner.
Absolutely, yes.
This will not be allocated, it will be auctioned. The coal mines are all scrapped and they'll now be auctioned. History would have recorded him differently. I have no doubt in that mind. And that is where I think the courage to be a political leader and therefore a capacity to overrule and a capacity to have the last word in the government, that must always belong to the Prime Minister. Ministers must look up to him for a nod, and not how we can trip the Prime Minister or stop him.
You see, this unedifying spectacle that went on between the Finance Ministry and the Prime Minister's office on trying to apportion blame for 2G was, I think, one of the lowest points in our history of governance.
Well, I think their part of the blame would lie on both the offices.
Right.
For the reason, when you have such a clear case ahead of you, in front of you, that an important national resource is to be distributed, the obvious question is, why do you distribute it allocate it in 2008 at 2001 prices?
Right.
How do you eventually select the winners? Now, today you have, for instance, whether it's spectrum, whether it is coal, and now with the new law, whether it is all other minerals. Right. Now, we have this obsolete thing of first come, first serve.
Absolutely.
In the mining industry.
Right.
We've replaced that. Now, this is 2015 is the year when these kind of arbitrary allotments have
the most profiteering extractive companies in India are owned by the government. NMDC and Coal India. Just pull it out and sell it.
You may not immediately want to sell those companies.
No. I'm saying that because of this way of allocating mines, that you just give it to them.
Today you'll have even a section of the private sector competing with them. Now, you mentioned coal.
Right.
We've come out with a coal law, the core ordinance. Some people have said, why are you bringing private sector into it? Now, in 2015, can you conceive of a situation that coal, which is essential for power generation in this country, must be only a state monopoly? What was the UPA doing? Did you not allocate mines to private parties, both in the power business and in the steel business and in other businesses?
Aluminum business.
The only difference between what we've done and what they have done is, they were doing it through a screening committee, a discretionary, arbitrary mechanism. We've said do it by an auction. And the manner in which my colleague Piyush Goyal has conceived of the auction is twofold. It will be a reverse auction. So he who bids the cheapest will get it, but then he will have to supply power at a cheapest price. So it will be linked to the price of power. So we pass the benefit to the consumer. The base price that you get, instead of the central government retaining it, will go to the state governments. Which are the state governments in this case? Jharkhand, West Bengal, Orissa and Chhattisgarh. All four of whom need an economic resource.
See, I don't know about other states, but I'll tell you about Jharkhand since I spent time there during the elections. The entire coal business is privatized, except that it's with private mafias.
No, it is. We know what's happening. So therefore, today you will allow, in the first round, all the public sector companies to get coal by allocation, because it's state to state. Then actual users will get it by auction. And then if it is necessary, you may even allow commercial mining. Coal, India for the present remains the same. It's at a later stage.
In fact, like always happens in India, reform comes out of a crisis.
Well, I think this has taught us how to move further. The crisis in the coal sector, the spectrum sector and so on. And I think we are taking the right steps. My point was, if UPA, the finance minister or the prime minister had then stood out and said, let's scrap this process and do it by an auction.
Right.
As editor of Indian Express, you carried a couple of stories against the NDA when Mr. Vajpayee was the prime minister.
Right.
On the petrol pumps. On the petrol pumps.
Yes.
Mr. Vajpayee called a meeting after reading all those stories.
The pump scam.
The pump scam, as you called it. He said, "Kya karna hai?" The meeting lasted 20 minutes. Two different viewpoints were expressed. He heard everybody and said, "Ye theek nahi ho raha, isko scrap kijiye." So most of the pumps that you mentioned, they were scrapped in a 20-minute meeting.
Yes. In fact, Arun, just admit, it's a distraction. Did you build this Hanuman temple here or did you inherit it?
No, this is, those who were occupying this house had built it, and I am given to understand that Mr. Shinde was living here, and before him Mr. Mulayam Singh Yadav was living here. So this is the legacy which Mr. Mulayam Singh has
because he always says I'm a Hanuman Bhakt,
yes,
like every wrestler.
It's a very nice temple.
It's a very nice temple.
In a people tree,
very nice
which was built during that time.
Very nicely positioned. Beautiful little thing. So tell me, Arun, this ordinance, the wave of ordinances, at which point did you decide that, look, bahut ho gaya, let's push with these?
You see, when virtually we got a clear message that the Rajya Sabha will not be allowed to function, we decided the country cannot stop functioning. At the first instance, when a statement was made by a lady minister, the Prime Minister came and disapproved of the statement.
But it was a stupid statement.
It was unquestionably an improper statement to make, unquestionably. The Prime Minister came and distanced himself and said, this can't be done. I disapprove it completely. We thought that's an end of the matter. But after the Prime Minister's statement, for the next 5 days, the House was not allowed to function again. So second time around, they said something is happening in UP, the Prime Minister must come again. Your intention was not the Prime Minister should come again. Your intention was we are not going to allow it to function. I overheard things like, not this session, let's do it in the next session.
Or you've only seen 2 weeks. The point is they were getting even with you.
You see,
they were paying you back.
All right, but then the Constitution has a mechanism to deal with such a situation, and we'll resort to whatever is within the framework of the Constitution.
But tell me, should that minister, junior minister, have been removed for this? Because this was a very bad statement.
You see, the statement was improper. I would say it was her first mistake, considering her social and entire background.
That's patronizing.
No, I wouldn't say it's patronizing. I think it's a mistake she committed without realizing it. When it was pointed out to her, thereafter she's understood and got the message loud and clear.
Because you talked about Prime Minister having political capital. The question that will always be raised about Mr. Modi is Nagpur his 10th Janpath or not?
Well, let me tell you, much is being made out of this. First of all, there is no micromanagement by our ideological friends. Let's be very clear. We do discuss issues with them.
Ideological friends or teachers?
I would say we are a part of a larger ideological group, and the kind of independence we have in functioning, the Prime Minister and his team have is functioning, need not be overemphasized by me. All the steps which we have been taking, ordinarily there are many people outside the government who would say, oh, they won't be allowed to do all this, etc. But most of the friends that we have, whether it's in trade unions or it's in the farmers or etc., some of them have concerns. We do listen to them. After all, even the communist unions come and meet me. But at the same time, I don't find any kind of obstruction from our friends in the kind of road that we have decided to
No,
go
but
on.
there was a hijacking of headlines, and now I see that now latest action being the show cause notice to Sakshi Maharaj. It does look like the Prime Minister is fighting back to take his headlines back.
No, he's certainly extremely unhappy about what some of these, one or two of these people have been doing.
Right.
And we can understand somebody representing a particular political, religious, social background that you err once. But if you do it repeatedly, then the party will have to send a strong message. After all, you are a member of parliament. The government is doing so many good things. You can't be allowed to deflect the agenda.
Which was the worst law passed by UPA, you think, although you voted for all of them?
I would say what was extremely unrealistic law was the land acquisition law. And after we brought out the ordinance and amended that law, I have friends from opposition parties privately telling me कि हमें विरोध तो करना पड़ेगा पर भाई साहब आपने किया ठीक है जो किया है.
अच्छा.
And many people from the opposition are saying the same thing. Therefore, I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So any political party which is opposed to it, let them not implement it.
Have you had a conversation with Jairam Ramesh on this now, on the amendments?
No, I have not spoken to him on the amendments. But when the law was being drafted by him, I certainly had a word with him then.